3, 2, and 1. All right. So we've locked our answers officially. All right. So, hey, I'm talking. So, all right. I told you guys to focus on those prefixes, right?
Yep.
So the suffix here, what is it? Suffix. English class, guys. Tropism. Okay, so, right? So we're gonna ignore the suffix, the prefixes, okay? So let's first focus on hydro. Hydro, what does that usually have to do with? Water, agua, right? So water, we can kind of connect it to that, right? Photo, photosynthesis,
Light.
geo,
Big.
let's skip that. Chemo, chemicals, no,
I think chemical.
all right?
Oh, yeah.
So thermo,
Temperature.
temperature, all right? So therefore, the only one that we have left that we're not too familiar with is thigmo, right? And thigmo means to touch things, okay? Thigmotropism, you can start to think of things like Venus flytraps and things like that. Or hey, shh, not during lecture. So, some of the tropisms that we're going to talk about is those 6 tropisms, but we're also going to be talking about the difference between gymnosperms and angiosperms, the names of the plant reproductive organs, and how plant fertilization is going to be occurring. Okay, so fun stuff. All right. Have you ever noticed houseplants leaning towards the window? Okay, so we all have mothers that love to kind of like put plants everywhere, right? They do it for multiple types of reasons. Okay, one reason is also to kind of clean the air. It's a natural air purification. So you know we have all these air purifiers that you guys love to unplug. Yes. Right? So they're air purifiers, okay? So don't mistake them for ACs because they have nothing to do with the temperature, all right? So air purifiers, what they do is actually bring in some of that, the pollutants and stuff, and then put out the oxygen and cleaner air, okay? So that's what we want, all right? Now, going back to plants, they kind of do the same thing. They purify the air in the same sort of mechanism, okay? So, but instead what they're doing is removing a lot of the carbon deposits that are in the air. And they'll actually filter through the plant, making the household a little bit more clean. So, contrary to belief, don't get a fake plant, get a real one, okay? Plants moving when you touch them, okay? So some have actual responses, all right? Believe it or not, there's a little study where they were singing at a plant and then they were also like yelling at a plant. And the one that you were singing to tended to grow more healthy, okay? And the one that was being yelled at, you know, cursed at, all that was actually affected in some way. So very, very crazy to think about. Are plants alive? Sure. Do they have feelings? Maybe. All right. So plants being rooted to the ground must respond to environmental changes that come their way. So how do they exactly respond? The things that I just talked about, the things that I just mentioned about the plants actually having a response. That's what a stimulus is, okay? So in biology, anytime you hear that word stimulus, you're always going to think of a response to something. You're going to think of impulses, okay? You're going to think, what makes those impulses? Well, what makes those impulses are nervous systems, okay? We're all just kind of nervous systems that respond to things, our environment, each other, all these interactions, right? Auxin is another word that's going to be a hormone that promotes growth, that contributes to a lot of these stimuli. All right, this one came back, but we can go ahead and focus on phototropism, okay? So with photosynthesis, we understand that there's a conversion of light into glucose, which gives the plant its energy and food. Well, if we have photosynthesis occurring, you can kind of look at this little shoebox diagram, okay? Right over there, we had the plant right there, and as it tended to grow, it actually made its way up, in and out, okay, to be able to actually reach the sunlight. So as it grows, you can see how it kind of orients itself to be able to get up there and into the photo environment. So how does that work with those auxins? Okay, it's all about the auxin. So auxin moves away from the light. Auxin causes cells to elongate in this method. So when you kind of see some of the auxins that go that way, and they cause the cell to elongate, well then the response can be that the stimuli is going to orient itself and move itself towards those towards the actual photo environment. With auxins, okay, plants will always grow towards the light. All right. So remember that it's a hormone, okay? What are hormones? It's on the brain. No. What are hormones? Chemicals in the brain? Only in the brain?
No, in your body to react.
Yeah, a stimulus, right?
Yep.
That actually helps us have a stimulus and a response, a chemical messenger, if you will. So it's actually things that allow us to kind of like talk to different systems in our body, whether that's our reproductive system, our nervous system, whatever have you, okay? So it's an important thing for us to understand how hormones work. In the tipped over plant, is there more auxin on the top or bottom of the stem? Choose your option, all right? I'll give you guys 10 seconds, whiteboard question, go.
Wait.
9.
Wait, what was the question?
8.
What was the
What's the
question?
question?
7. 6. 5. 4. Oh, you wanted to just claim it first. Favorite student. Starting off with the favorite
We
student.
posted that on the story.
All right. 5, 4, 3.
Wait.
Shh. Here. For today, since you love sharing. All right. So, all right, raise them up. Raise them up. Raise them up. Raise them up.
Jesus.
All right. So we got more or less maybe like a 10% top, 90% bottom.
Yep.
Okay, so right here, all right, who wants to double down on the debate between top and bottom? All right, Mia?
It's the bottom because if it started with the top, it would have grown up straight, but like automatically without having to tilt the plant over, but it started from the bottom because the bottom is where it curves up.
Because now we hear, right? So right over there, we can kind of look at that and we can think about how the auxins are going to orient themselves, and if they're going to be moving there, then the elongation can occur. Okay, so good job, Mia. So negative and positive tropisms. All right, so positive is going to be towards a stimulus, and negative is away. Right, so positive, think attract. Negative, obviously, think away. Okay, so kind of repelling itself away from it. So stems, are they positive or negative? Roots, are they positive or negative? Okay, here the stimulus is the sun in this case. What do you think about the tropism? Okay.
Right on the
No.
Is this a whiteboard question?
Oh, we could just circle them. Yes.
First do it on your PDs, okay, and then we'll see what you guys have to say.
Also, do I get to start for that last question?
You do. Absolutely.
Thank you.
Troy's over there because he wants to be fake.
Oh,
Troy is fake. Fake? That's fluff. Just shuddering.
Yeah. We got wow.
Wait, how long do we have?
Wow.
That's like an hour. We should do. Wait, what are we doing? What are we doing?
Maybe. I'll see.
No way, no. It's like a project, right? So, no way, no. It's a learning experience. Wait, can we do a look it? Let's do a look it. Look it is more fun.
We'll see how much time we have. This is like 44 seconds. Huh? Get it? I don't know about that, man. I
He's
had mine at your face. Back at Revere.
You went to Paul
Oh, that's her.
You. Look,
Mr. Paul Revere.
You.
Oh, it'd be just intentional.
You actually had a bowl coming out.
I think I one time did the mushroom and then they messed it up. You know, like the Asian parlors. The Asian parlors will always like, because it's actually like a Chinese style. They literally would put a bowl.
Yeah,
They literally would do that.
I mean, that's kind of smart. Bowl cups are not even that bad. You could look at choice. Choice? No.
Nah, well,
Mine's
no, Troy's got more of the sport haircut. The sport. It's like a supercut haircut. You
what? You should get a perm.
No.
I don't know. I'm just a cap guy these days. Me? Yeah. Oh yeah. Oh yeah.
Are you bald? That's so mean.
Oh, yeah.
Mr.
Oh
Travis.
yeah.
My dad used to
Not bald, but I'm bald. Okay. So. All right. So, hopefully you guys
I feel bad.
won't laugh too much 5 years from now. So, here we go. The stimulus is the sun, okay? The correct tropism for the stems, all right? The stems, is that positive or negative? Write that on your whiteboards real quick. Let's go. All right. 10, 9, 8. You can do a plus or minus. 3, 2, 1.
Oh, so you're copying me now.
1.
Did I do it wrong?
I got it.
I just put one in.
All right, here we go. All right, raise them up. Okay. First 1, 2. Draw a teddy bear.
She did it.
I did it.
No, you look at I did it.
Look, mine is the
Look
best one. Look at the face. Look at the face.
Mine, look at mine. Mine has a
I kind of like Betty's.
Benny,
I'm not gonna lie.
let me see.
It's a koala.
No, mine has
He
a whole body.
koalified himself.
You said
Okay?
to me, not
So, all right.
Okay.
What? It's what? Positive? Okay, shh. Listen. Benny, why do you think it's positive though?
This is going towards the sun. It's going up.
So the stem is going towards the sun. It's not going in the opposite direction or away from it, all right? So very, very straightforward knowledge as far as the auxins, right, are concerned too. So you need to kind of understand how the mechanism is working inside as well, okay? Good job. Benny gets a star.
Boo.
Okay, are we doing the roots too?
Bro, that was such a good throw.
That was not a
too.
good throw. That's why Benny played right.
Benny's more of a linebacker.
I don't know about that one.
So, all right, the roots. Stop. Roots.
Oh, I got
You're
it.
bulking though. You're bulking. All right, so the roots. All right, what do y'all got?
Negative.
Negative.
Negatory. Okay.
First one too.
Why, Nyla? So I'm giving you a chance to get extra credit. That's all.
We're gonna take it.
You gotta take it. Why negative? Think the opposite of what Benny said.
Oh, it's like farther from the sun.
It's further from the sun. In other words, it's underneath the ground too, right? And you see it growing downward, right? You don't see it growing upward, right? So therefore, the auxins have oriented themselves to the top, and now the elongations are occurring towards the bottom. Do you agree with Steve? Okay, so if Christine agrees, then I know what I'm talking about.
What?
Okay, so geotropism.
He needs the star.
Geotropism responds towards gravity. Okay, so this one's a little bit different. Okay, So the response towards gravity is going to show us the moving away from the stimulus the same way, but also positive. But think about gravity for a second. What is gravity? The force that what? The force that applies onto us. Okay, so what does Rustine mean when he's saying applies onto us, Natalie? Gravity. How would you explain gravity? Hey.
Oh, it's not.
The force that maintains us on the floor, right? So the natural forces that actually occur throughout nature as well, right? So scientifically in bio, that's how we're going to kind of look at it, right? Because of the fact that all these natural forces are orienting a lot of the life forms to the ground. And so we want to think of geotropism in that way. So geo equals earth. Earth is surrounded by gravity. Gravity kind of controls all of it, all right? So here we go. The importance of geotropism. Have you ever seen a tree with the shoots and leaves in the ground and the roots in the air? Okay, so think about what kind of roots we're talking about here. Have you ever seen something like this?
Wait, I think that's what happens during winter. No, it doesn't.
Be gentle.
You don't
It
get
sounds
it?
like my mindset.
Wait, who's the child? Isn't there? It's just like the leaves fall off.
I know what you're talking about, but the leaves, it's the organs.
It's a joke.
Mr. Chow.
Oh,
Who's the child?
it's just the photosynthesis can't occur. So no, all right. We typically would not see something like this because of the fact that the organs need sunlight. All right. That stimulus is also a response of phototropism. Okay.
Mr. Chow. That sounded like my mindset.
So with the importance of geotropism, okay, we're pulling the roots down to anchor a plant. All right. Anchoring is one of the functions of the actual roots themselves, okay? Remember your root and shoot system, when the roots are obtaining the nutrients that they need, they're pulling things up into the shoot system to be able to distribute throughout its organs. So imagine if a farmer had to put each corn seed in the earth top up, okay? All right, so thigmotropism is probably the one that is focused on mostly with when tropisms are occurring. Have you guys ever seen a Venus flytrap?
Yes.
Right, what do?
They eat flies.
Eating flies, right? That's probably the coolest thing about them, right? Because you're like, dang, plant, eat meat, right?
What do Venus flytraps?
You can kind of think of it like Mario, like what was it? The piranha plant, right? Yeah. So you can think of it that way too, where it responds, right? But even the piranha plant, I don't think it has eyes, right? So it's like whenever there's a response to the little microfiber hairs right there, and there is a actual stimulus to a food source, being one of the flies or insects that comes upon it, it's going to quickly just close itself on it, and then that thing is in prison for a long time where digestive enzymes can actually slowly start to eat away at it, okay? So it's not like it just chews it up, right? And then digests it and then puts it out or anything. It's an actual process with plants that makes it occur through a stimulus response. And then in that stimulated state, you can see even that, the one I was talking about when I was a kid and we would plant outside, whenever you would touch some of these type of plants, they would close up. And so that's also a response, all right? It's a protective response to for that particular plant to survive, okay? So through evolutionary processes, it was able to create this kind of nervous system. So what's the importance of thigmotropism, okay? So vines, you can think of vines as well, okay? And no, I'm not talking about that 2016 famous platform, talking about actual plants, right? With the plants here, we will often use the stronger plants or other objects around it to gain height. All right, so you'll notice vines kind of grow upward towards things, like even on ladders and stuff like that, and they'll orient themselves the same way towards the light. So thigmotropism also kind of can work with phototropism as well. notice that some of these things are not mutually exclusive, okay? If it's going upward, well, that's the opposite of geotropism. So make sure that you kind of understand the scenarios and how confusing they can be sometimes. With hydrotropism, we're responding to anything to do with water. So the response to water, in this case, is roots always grow towards water, which is a positive tropism. They're always gonna have a stronger response to water than gravity to ensure that a plant gets the water that it is required and needs, okay? So when you have the wet soil, remember your osmotic pressures are going to act upon the plants themselves, okay? Going from, in osmosis, what does it go from low to high or high to low? Whiteboard question, go. Bam. Whiteboard question, go. 10, 9, 8, 7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, and 1. All right. Whiteboard's up? All right. First one. To say the opposite of what you have on your board. Go to high.
Let's go.
Yeah, I was like,
I heard it. Yeah, Kristen's up.
Okay, so basically
What is it?
goes high to low.
Okay, and high to low, what are you talking about specifically?
So what I'm talking about is the way that the response to water goes.
Hey, come on. All right, next time we're calling names.
Oh,
Go ahead,
so
Christian.
The reason it goes high to low is because like the gravity is pulling the water down, like it's going down the plant. So it ends up starting at the very top where it's getting all the water from, and then it starts going down the plant and getting it through the root system and all that.
Anyone disagree? All right, so he specifically talked about osmotic pressures going from the top to the wet soil, okay? So from the wet soil to the dry soil, and we wanted to think about that hydrotropism is acting with osmosis, okay? So for a test question, you need to be able to associate those two, okay? All right, this seems fun. I'm gonna flash you an image. You'll have 5 seconds to identify the tropism.
Do we write it on the board?
So, what kind of tropism is this? Phototropism.
one more question?
Yeah, let's make these all work. All right? You'll have 5 seconds. 5, 4, 3, 2, and 1. Throw 'em up. All right. The first one to say the suffix.
Tropism.
Oh snap!
Bam, suffix, okay? So threw that curveball at you because earlier you guys forgot what a suffix was. So, yes, remember your prefixes and suffixes, okay?
Get a star.
All right, yeah, Mia gets a star, all right? And it is phototropism, all right? So I've already talked about photo, what that means, all right? So we're gonna keep moving. Here we go.
Lucha boy now.
I don't know where that came from, but that was kind of fun.
Swipe me.
That's why I don't play baseball.
So, what about this one, okay? What do we got going on here?
Oh snap!
We got this vine, all right? What kind of tropism is this?
Should be multiple.
Oh, I think I know.
Not so clear now, is it?
Steak. Wait, I can't answer. The screen isn't on, right?
Yeah, I think it's big.
This whiteboard. Yeah, but I have to answer on the
No,
parent.
it's big.
On the whiteboard.
Joe.
Who knows what it means?
That's good.
I was laughing at that joke.
Yeah.
85 pounds to 92 pounds.
Damn! In 2 weeks.
3 days.
Gia.
Yo, I lost 10 pounds over the summer.
It's Gia?
All right, guys.
I thought it was mine.
All right, raise up your whiteboard. I already see a 50-50 split.
How old is Gio?
All right, raise it up. Y'all changing. Y'all changing. Y'all trust each other so much.
All these bad.
All right, here we go. First one, 2. Throw your whiteboard up.
Oh, yeah. I think it was me.
You gotta start getting in the back of the room. Cause you ain't even you're.
Are you implying I have a bias?
Yes.
Yes.
How dare you?
These three your body.
Okay, so, Benny, but my favorite student's on that side.
Who's your favorite student?
Not telling.
Rusty.
So, all right,
It's me.
Benny,
Yeah.
what you got?
Oh, geotropism.
Shut up, bro.
Y'all, can y'all like calm down?
What'd you say? Why geotropism and not stigma like 50% of you were putting?
Okay, the reason it can't be, so let's use, what's it called? Process of elimination, right?
No, let's not.
Okay, so,
No, go ahead, go ahead.
So,
Go ahead.
Okay, so in the picture,
Yes.
you can see there's like an arrow making it go straight, right?
Yes.
And the reason I think it's, geo is because remember the picture of the cardboard box? It's like where it like formed into this. I think it's geo because that's how, like, it changed from going in a straight line to curving.
All right, so I'll take that. Give Benny the star. All right, because of the fact that he saw some of the things. But remember, the cardboard box wasn't a good example though, Benny. You know why it wasn't a good example? Because that was a phototropism symbol, okay? Remember that it was going towards the sunlight, right? So, but you did kind of understand how gravity is working in this case, and you can see how the roots are oriented themselves downward, right? Whereas the phototropism is acting here. So specifically, we're looking at both of the orientations and how they are kind of going like this now, okay? So yes, with the Earth, the response to the Earth is what's happening here, all right? So geotropism is Chronotropism is this, okay? I think that, yeah, that's a beam.
Oh, it's
What is
dead.
that at the bottom? Oh, no, I know.
I think it's ew. It's bad.
I want that extra credit.
I got. Oh wait.
I wanna be like.
Wait. Ugh.
At 5, 4, 3, 2, and 1.
Oh, I was wrong.
All right, first one to knock on the board once.
That was dumb.
That was Susan.
What?
You don't think it was Christian?
Susan, what you got?
Hydro.
Hydro. All right. So, Boca. All right. So, how did you figure it was hydrotropism?
Yo.
It's
Can't hear Susan.
There's water at the bottom of the cup and roots are navigating through it.
So there's water at the bottom of the cup. You kind of tell. I mean, you kind of tell there's water.
That don't look
So
like water.
they don't look like water, but it is blue and it's got something there, so you can see the roots are going towards it, right? And so therefore that is going to be hydrotropism. What kind of tropism is this? In this case, right here.
Oh,
right. So what we got going on here? I honed in on this one.
Sigma tropism. That was so funny.
It was. I approve. It was dad joke approved.
It's like the
Sigma tropism.
my butt's coming in.
All right. Raise them up.
Wait, do you think my butt's coming in?
It's unanimous, so therefore no winner. Which one is it? Thigmo. Okay, so we got thigmotropism occurring here because of the fact that there's a response to the actual environment and it's closing up, all right? So visually, we're able to tell, okay? So your observations can tell you which type of tropism it is as well, okay? Not just your knowledge. All right, now we can,
The bird.
you know, yeah,
Yo.
you know. So,
I always wondered how to figure it out.
we eventually had to have this talk, right?
Yeah.
Eventually. So in this case, we're going to use not the birds and the bees, I think plants, all right? So with plants, reproductive organs and how that kind of occurs a little bit, it's a little bit more simple in its understanding because of the fact that we can see pollination occurring, we can see how certain things are being reproduced just through means of transportation even, okay? So this also kind of branches into a symbiotic relationship. What does symbiotic mean, okay? It means a relationship between two different types of species, okay? So, but we will get to that when we talk about the ecology and interactions of systems, okay? Now, we want to think of vascular plants and we want to think of non-vascular plants. Remember, your vascular plants have the tissue, right? So they can be broken up into two categories, which are gymnosperms and angiosperms. And notice our suffix there, right? So we're talking about the reproductive portion of how these things tend to spread and reproduce. The non-vascular plants are going to be things like moss, okay? Remember that they lack those tissues and organs. Gymnosperms are going to be things like evergreens. They're going to be things like leaves that are needle-like, and they're both male and female cones as well. So when you think of some of these cones and things like that, it's interesting to kind of understand how they even reproduce sometimes. Sometimes something as destructive as a bottleneck event. What's a bottleneck event?
They like funnel
Hmm?
They funnel
Bottleneck means like,
They funnel down, okay? So remember when we were talking about genetic drift, talking about the genes and the bottleneck events? So things like a fire can actually spread some of these cones, okay? So evolutionarily, it relies on fire. Think about that, it's kind of really weird, right? It relies on fire to reproduce, all right? So just like the birds and bees are required, some of these cones, they need fire in order to actually break them apart and then spread their seed. And so that's how you'll see a lot of pine cones on the ground, okay? Because of that. So the evergreens are an example of that. I thought that was just a fun fact, okay? Don't get too caught up with that. But yeah, the male cone and the female cone, you can look at some of the differences between the actual structures themselves, right? The reproductive structures are different. What do you notice it's so different?
the color.
Yeah, the color right off the bat, right? And even the shape, you can see some of the little fibers on them are different too.
Wait, so do the female cones more,
We haven't used
I think this is probably gonna answer your next question, right? So right here, when you look at the male cone, it contains pollen that's carried by wind to female cones, okay? And so female cone will open to take in pollen, then close tightly for germination, then open again to release the seeds. And so like I was saying before, some of those fires sometimes allow that to occur for the wind to be able to carry it, okay? So, very, very interesting. There's a video here. Yeah, we have time. Video?
We have till 11:55.
11?
we actually
No, we had until 10:55.
Or not.
Mr. Chow, when do we leave this class?
What? Let's go
When do we leave?
11.
No, we leave at 10:55.
That's like 5 minutes.
Sorry.
No, I'm not. Just saying. It's fine.
Here we go.
Can I use it?
Oh, wait. The video is unavailable.
Yo.
I know we can go to YouTube, I can go like press
I'm not gonna be like Steven.
Oh, it's so
Yo! Oh, I remember that game. I'm pretty good at that.
Ready to place it.
You know, they have Skippy toilet concerts.
Wait, I'm about to find out the
Yeah.
name.
You said gymnosperms.
Oh, that's promising.
Yeah, one of them.
I'm a Scoozy though.
Wait, okay, what's the,
During the spring months, you might have noticed these orange clusters looking a bit like catkins appearing on conifers like pines, spruces, and firs. And if you passed by conifers during windy weather, you might have even seen a cloud of yellow dust blowing from these orange clusters. The yellow dust is actually pollen, which comes out of male pollen cones that develop on coniferous trees. They're present only for a short time, so you won't be able to see them on the trees all year round. But how can there be pollen when there aren't any flowers? Coniferous trees belong to a group of plants called gymnosperms. Their reproduction is evolutionarily more basic than reproduction in angiosperms, which are flowering plants. To see what we mean by this, let's look at this process in pine trees. During spring, pine trees start producing male cones at the tips of the branches. They appear in clusters, and each cone is loaded with pollen. Every individual pollen grain can produce male reproductive cells called sperm. Pines are not pollinated by insects or birds, as you might be used to from flowering plants. Instead, the pollen is released from male cones and carried away by wind. Each pollen grain is equipped with 2 air sacs to help it float in the air, which makes them look like Mickey Mouse's head. The pollen grain is very tiny, only about 1/20th of a millimeter in length, so you would need a high magnification microscope to see it. If you happen to find pollen cones and can reach them, try shaking the branch they're on and witness the amazing pollen explosion. If there's not much coming out, it might be because the cones are older and they've already released all their pollen. Of course, if you're allergic to plant pollen, this is not a good experiment to try. But let's get back to reproduction. Now we have pollen with male cells floating in the air, but in order to make a seed, pollen needs to find its way to the female reproductive structures. Where are these located? In pines, you'll find the female cones on the same tree where you find the male cones. These female cones look much more like what you imagine when you think of a pine cone. However, at the time when they're receiving pollen, they're much smaller and more closed up. Inside these nearly completely enclosed cones are structures called ovules, which are ready to receive pollen. Pollen drifting through the air randomly finds its way inside the female cone through small openings. After the pollen is received, the female cone closes completely, while the sperm produced by the pollen joins with the ovule. This is called fertilization, and it will result in a seed. The cone stays closed to protect the new seed inside during its development, a process that takes 2 to 3 years. During this time, the cone grows in size, but stays firmly closed. You might notice female cones of different ages all on the same tree. When the seeds inside are fully mature, the cone opens up to release the seeds. They can be dispersed by wind or animals like birds or squirrels who enjoy eating them, but may drop a few in the process. And there's one more cool thing that pine cones do. Female cones open only when the weather is convenient for seed dispersal. During wet, rainy weather, female cones close up to protect the seeds inside. You've probably seen this while walking outside after a rain. All the pine cones are closed, but once they dry out, they open up again. You can try this experiment at home. Just take an open, mature female cone and place it into a bowl filled with water. Watch the scales slowly close up as the cone takes on the moisture. That's the protecting mechanism in action. Let us know in the comments below if you tried this experiment, and we'll see you in the next video.
Okay, so you can see the response happening to something as simple as a pine cone, okay? You saw that the ovules were opening and closing based on the actual tropism itself. So you can kind of see how germination occurs through that process with the gymnosperms, okay? Now, let's shift our gears to something called angiosperms, okay? Now, with angiosperms, we're flowering plants, all right? 80% of plants are angiosperms, all right? So, that means that most plants are going to fall under this category, all right? So a lot of the ones that we've been talking about with vascular plants are going to typically be angiosperms. Being that those gymnosperms kind of look different, like pine cones obviously don't look like flowers, so you can think of it that way to kind of help you remember on the exam, okay? Now, flower functions, okay? What they do is they attract pollinators, okay? They need insects, birds, bats, things like that, to transmit the pollen into the site of sexual reproduction, okay? That'll allow the fruiting bodies to actually carry the seed, which are similar to an embryo in a human, okay? So, all fertilized flowers develop into fruit, okay? When you look at some of the different types of fruits that can occur, you can see, and then that allows the ecosystem to thrive. So look at how dependent we are of this. But I kind of feel a little sus about that because not every blackberry can be eaten. So be careful, don't just trust flowers to create a non-toxic substance, okay? Sweet fruit encourages animals to eat the seeds. The animal will defecate the seeds somewhere, and then that process also allows for more reproduction. Look at all the seeds in this poop. I promise I didn't make these slides. But here you go, all right? So you can kind of see all the different types of things, right? Now, we talked about poop a lot in this class. I just realized that. So, angiosperm and reproduction, yeah, like chlorine, poop, cellulose. So, angiosperm reproduction, okay? So, we have the female pistil right there, we have the male stamen right over here. So notice how the female pistil is kind of connected to the ovary. The female reproductive structures, okay, specifically talking about the pistil, it's got something called the stigma, which is the sticky tip that traps pollen. The style, right here, think of like a pen, like a stylus, all right? It's a slender tube, transports pollen from stigma to ovary. The ovary contains ovules, and the ovary develops into fruit. The ovule contains egg, which develops into a seed when fertilized, okay? So the ovule and the ovary act very similarly to a human one. So the female reproductive structure, you can also think of something like, compared to an apple, you notice that the ovary and the ovule are actually connected right over here. So evidence of that, it occurs in the fruits, okay? And so that relationship between the two can be now bridged, and you can use that as an example. But with the stigma and the style, that is one that we typically see with the angiosperms. So the female reproductive structure, okay, so the pistil. The ovule contains egg cells which develop into a seed when fertilized. Stigma, sticky tip, traps pollen, so on and so forth. So here you can kind of do your matching, all right? But I think I will probably open this up later. Let's talk about the male one, all right? The male reproductive structures are gonna be like mostly in the stamen. Remember, we don't have the, hey, come on. Come on. The male reproductive structures are gonna be like the stamen. So the anther, okay, that's gonna be like the knob-like structures that produce pollen. The filament is going to be like the thin stalk that supports the anther, and the anthers are gonna be these structures up here at the top. The pollen itself contains these sperm cells, okay, that's how it's able to actually do that. So, yeah, think about that when you get a whiff of pollen. The pollination, okay? The pollination here is the pollen from an anther is caught by the stigma, travels to the ovules in the ovary, and now congratulations, you have a seed and a newborn baby, so you can tend their baby shower.
So seeds are babies?
No, you don't want to think of seeds as babies.
Or sheets this way. No, it's penises.
Like embryos. So the flower structure and pollination, okay? The petals, usually colorful and scented, attracts pollinators, okay? So visually, things that are a little bit more pretty is gonna attract those pollinators. Think about how nature is working, right? It's selectively choosing. This is nature at play, right? So natural selection kind of contributes to things like this. Pollinators, the literal birds and the bees that aid in the plant reproduction and sepals, are encloses and protects the flowers before it blooms, okay? Sepals will actually, if you ever see like roses and stuff, it will actually protect the rose itself. Response cards. We'll use your whiteboards for this, okay? So, let's see how many there are. Oh, cool. All right. So, which of the following statements is true about fertilization process in flowers? All right. A, the egg cell is fertilized by the sperm cell in the ovary of the flower. B, the pollen grain contains the female reproductive cell of the flower. C, fertilization takes place before pollination. Or D, fertilization can only occur after pollen from a different plant has pollinated a flower. Give you guys one.
How did that even tell me?
Liz, don't put me on that.
Feel my hands wide, I don't know.
Yes.
15 seconds. Eight, 7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, and 1. All right, this one's for the ball. All right, so wipers up.
Wait, no, turn my head, please.
Looking unanimous. What's the answer? All right. Now, keep them up real quick. All right. First one, 2. Knock on it 10 times.
I did it.
What is B? He kept the count. I saw him. Go.
It's A because the egg cell is fertilized by the, so it's just basically the process.
All right, let's read that. The egg cell is fertilized by the sperm cell in the ovary of the flower. Okay. Why are the other ones wrong? Why is that one right?
So the other ones are wrong because C is wrong because fertilization doesn't take place before pollination. It needs to be pollinated before. Fertilization can only occur after pollen from a different plant has pollinated a flower. That's not true at all.
Not true, right?
P, pollen grain contains the female reproductive cell of the flower. That's also not true.
The pollen grain contains
That's
the female
the sperm,
reproductive
right?
cell of the flower.
Isn't that the male? And that the female reproductive is like in the flower. That's the pollen.
Anyone want to bridge off with that?
Wait, what? What? I don't care. Wait.
All right, they're giving it to you. So we're gonna give it to you. The ball stays with Benny. Therefore, A is the correct answer. All right, let's see if you can steal the ball with this question. All right, arrange the following images in the chronological order that represents the process of pollination. All right. So, what part of the plant reproductive system helped you determine the order of pollination?
Biscuits with like Popeyes is not good. Cookies are good. Biscuits are eh.
So, the order.
Yeah.
Write down the order. 30 seconds.
My butt is down. Mr. Child, all my teammates are getting COVID and they're all like, oh yeah, well, yeah, good, nice, I don't feel anything. And then my coach is like, y'all, I don't feel as good, but I don't feel bad. And I was just like, that's not all. And then she
3, 4, 1, 2.
All right, 10, 9, 8,
How are we supposed to put this in order? Like,
Seven.
the number?
No, you put it like
6,
You gotta draw it.
5, 4, 3. You don't have to draw it. Just gotta put the numbers. 2
1.
and 1. Throw them up.
Oh, I got 4 and 2.
All right, you guys have 3, 4, 1, 2. Some people have 2, 3, 4, 1. Okay, Shafiq and Rastine. All right, so you guys, I want to hear from you after. Okay, why do you guys have 3, 4, 1, 2? Christian.
So I was thinking scientifically, and I was like, I think 3 is the starting plant with pollen. Yeah, because it's open. And 4 is starting to pollinate, right? And then 1 is starting to like get a little bit more closed, and then 2 is done pollinating. It's like it's done with this process.
What's the difference between 2 and 3?
I told you it's a little bit more closed. And like it's done pollinating. Like see how they have
You're saying this is more closed than that?
No. I'm saying 2 is
What's
more
the difference
closed.
between these two?
So like see the blue clouds on 3? I think that means that they're pollinating. And so the 2 means that since there's no blue clouds there, the pollination is done.
No, it's not that.
No, switch.
It's not that.
Switch the logic.
Oh, sorry. Betty was gonna say.
It's not that. It's
What were you gonna say?
3 is open, so like it's asking for pollination, right? And on 2 it's closed, like it's forming the seed.
On 2 it's closed?
Yeah.
What's closed?
Look, it's like it's not open. Look.
He's gonna fight the teacher.
You guys saw like it's like closed. It's closed. It's like thumbs.
Yeah. So one of the types of ways to make observations based on this is the fact that 2 could be in the beginning, it could be at the very end sometimes too. It's the fact that it's a typical structure. Okay. Now for this one, Rastine, why do you have 2, 3, and then 4, 1?
So I thought 2 was negative. So if you look at the difference between 2 and 3, the tip of the stigmata, I believe it's called, it has a few pollens. So I thought 2 was the beginning, then it initiated into 3, and then into 4, where they went through the side into the ovules, and then after that they started pollinating.
Exactly. Okay. So ball goes to Rastine. All right, because of the fact that the logic there is sound. Okay, the process will kind of be that way. Remember that some of these things are kind of fakey. So if this is a star question, hey, listen, if this is a star question, then we know that we have to think in the order of the actual process itself. Okay. Now, while you might get confused, I want you to kind of eliminate that. Focus on the word. What we're talking about here, pollination. Okay, and we want to follow those steps in that order. Okay. So good job, Rastine. With seed dispersion, we talked about this with which one? Gymnosperms or angiosperms? Write it down really quickly. 5 seconds. 5.
What?
Gymnosperms or angiosperms? 5, 4, 3, 2, and 1. Abby, what is it? Bam. All right, Abby did it first. All right, pass the ball to Abby. She gets the ball.
Go to her face.
Nice
He's like,
touch.
it's not right.
All right. So pollen can be distributed in this way. All right.
Wait, let me see.
Hitchhiking. I like that guy. All right. Seeds and sticky surfaces or pointy barbs easily get stuck on animals as they pass by. So a lot of things like bears and stuff like that, they'll actually carry a lot of the things when they climb on trees and all that. We talked about animal poop. All right. The asexual plant reproduction. What does asexual mean?
You just make
One.
You make a clone, a copy of itself, okay?
Hey, one word.
All right, so that was almost a star. But yeah, the pros of this is don't have to produce a flower, don't have to attract pollinators, don't have to find a means of seed dispersal, right? So because of the fact that we're making that copy itself. And cons are that the plant is identical to the parents. Why would that be a con? Okay, ready on your whiteboards? Go. Why would that be a con?
Wait, can you repeat the question one more time?
No.
I was fixing my mark.
Did you say no?
Just copy my scene.
Or see what you write. Pass that border.
All right.
I don't know what you said.
10, 9,
Writing notes.
8, 7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, and 1. All right, raise your whiteboards up.
Dang.
Yes.
All right, put your whiteboard down if you have anything other than the word genetic or diversity.
You have variety of spectrum.
Variety is good, but I like the other synonyms more. All right.
Wah, wah.
So who's got it?
I got you.
Benny, fire. Must like plants. All right. Benny has no genetic diversity. Okay, so therefore you got it right. I am impressed. All right. So there will be an ed puzzle for your review on plants. All right. This will be specific to the reproduction portion. So on Canvas, I will put the ed puzzle there as well.
Wait, can we,
Yeah, let's actually let's see.
video.
Get ready to refresh your home and show the living spaces present.
Yeah, let's watch this last video, and then.
Today's topic is the exciting process
My
of
user ID.
Sure, first, angiosperms, just to understand it a little bit.
That relates and always reminds us about how fascinating angiosperm reproduction really is. Now, we are sisters
Last video.
in different areas of Texas with our own separate families. One day in the Pankey household, I happened to notice a few bees flying by our window. I happen to be pretty enthralled by most insects, so my family watched these bees for a while. It didn't take long to realize that these bees had made a nest, a beehive, so to speak, in the insulation material in our house. They had found a small opening through the windowsill. Some people may not enjoy this, we realize, but we were a little fascinated. It's not every day that you can observe a beehive so close. But over the weeks, we found a lot of friends and they started having some weird plans and things that came up that always seemed to keep them from being able to visit our house. One day, we had a little family barbecue and we learned a very scientific lesson. Okay, not really. Bees do not like barbecue. Or maybe they don't like the smoke from the grill, we're not really sure. And maybe it was just that our particular bees had a distaste for barbecue. We have not done a controlled study on this. But on this day, it became apparent to us that the bees had to go. But we didn't want to call an exterminator. Why? Well, that's where we get into this amazing story of plant reproduction. We'll come back to this story in just a minute and how it ties into plant reproduction. Angiosperms are flowering plants, and they are some of the most successful and diverse plants around. When you think of flowering plants, you may not realize that a lot of plants actually produce flowers. Many grasses, for example, many crops, all plants that produce fruit. In fact, flowering plants all bear fruit, just maybe not the type of fruit you are thinking of. Not all fruits, if going by the biological definition, are sweet or even edible. By the biological definition, a fruit develops from the ovary of a plant, which doesn't exactly sound appetizing. Pumpkins, green beans, tomatoes, squash, these all developed from the ovary of a flowering plant. These are all fruits. The term vegetable really isn't used as a true biology definition. A lot of what grocery stores classify to be vegetables are other structures of plants, like leaves, think of lettuce, or stems, think of celery, and sometimes grocery stores just classify vegetables as plant structures that are generally not as sweet. So angiosperms have flowers, and these are the reproductive structures. Many flowers contain both male and female parts. Other flowers only contain one part. Let's talk about flower parts of an angiosperm. First, we'll start with the male parts. The male parts make up the stamen. Stamen has men in it, so that helps me remember male. The stamen includes the filament and the anther. The filament is a stalk that supports the anther. The anther is a rather fluffy structure that produces pollen. Now, onto female parts, the pistil. The pistil is made of 3 major parts. The stigma, I like to say sticky stigma because pollen is supposed to stick onto this sticky structure. The style, which is the stalk that supports the stigma, and then the ovary at the base of the structure. The ovary is where fertilization will occur inside and seeds are formed within it. Also remember the ovary will ripen into a fruit. There are some parts of the flower that are neither male nor female. Sepals, for example. Sepals protect a developing flower bud. Or petals, for example. Fancy structures that help attract pollinators, which will take us to my bee story and also the steps of angiosperm, otherwise known as flowering plants, reproduction. First, let's understand a pollinator. Pollinators can include many types of organisms. Hummingbirds, butterflies, and bees are all examples. While pollen contains amino acids that some pollinators may feed on, and bees certainly do use the pollen as a food source, especially for their young, another great attracting factor for many pollinators is nectar. Nectar is a sugary, sweet substance produced by many flowering plants, and it is a great source of carbohydrates, meaning a great source of energy. As a pollinator drinks some of the sweet nectar, they tend to brush against the anthers of a flower. Remember that anthers produce pollen. Have you ever gotten a really good look at a bee? Many times you will see a yellow dust, pollen, all over their bodies. They just can't help themselves. The idea is if this pollen can be brushed from a pollinator onto the sticky stigma, the flower can be what we consider pollinated. But it's not done yet. Pollination is not enough. The sperm cell must join an egg to be fertilized. And if it's just sitting there on the stigma, it hasn't gotten there yet. Just a disclaimer, we are going to simplify this amazingly complex process of fertilization in angiosperms. But understand the main function is that this process is going to help the plant develop seeds, which can then grow into new baby plants. First, you have to understand that pollen grains, well, mature ones anyway, consist of 2 types of cells, a tube cell and a generative cell. So basically this pollen grain, once landing on the sticky stigma, uses the tube cell to burrow down a pollen tube from the stigma through the style to the inside area of the ovary. The generative cell, which is enclosed in the tube cell, will divide to form 2 sperm cells. So what do these 2 sperm cells want to do? Well, they are actually going to target an ovule, which is inside the ovary. There can be multiple ovules inside a plant ovary, but each ovule has the potential to develop into a seed if fertilized. Now, the ovules have 2 major key players to mention, an egg cell and something else called 2 polar nuclei, which I'll get to in a second. One of the sperm cells fertilizes the egg. This forms a zygote, which is basically a fertilized egg. The second sperm cell joins with the 2 polar nuclei. The function of combining with these 2 polar nuclei is that this will develop into the endosperm. The endosperm is full of nutrients for a developing baby plant. Now, if you are wondering, how did the egg cell develop and where did the polar nuclei come from? I highly encourage doing a little research. It's a process we need another video clip to cover. Because the fertilization process involves sperm cells joining 2 different things, the egg and then the polar nuclei, we call this double fertilization. Double fertilization is an important event in angiosperms. Angiosperms also have an added benefit that the surrounding ovary will ripen and develop into a fruit. Remember, not necessarily an edible fruit. They can help seeds travel far from the parent plant. You don't want baby plants to have to compete with their parent plant. For the non-edible fruits, some have the ability to stick to animal fur or be carried by wind or water. For the edible fruits, when an animal eats them, the seeds may pass through the digestive system unharmed, but in this way, they can travel a great distance from the parent plant. One thing to point out that we didn't mention in our example, many species of angiosperms are picky and they will only accept pollen from other plants and not accept pollen from their own anthers, basically not allowing self-pollination, which would make the travel of pollinators even more important. For crops all over the world, what would we do without our pollinators? Wind and other methods can only take you so far. Because pollinators are so important, we found a beekeeper who happily relocated our bees and took them off to a bee farm where they could happily pollinate flowers and let us barbecue at our house in peace. Well, that's it for the Amoeba Sisters, and we remind you to stay curious.
Okay, congratulations, you made it through plants so far, all right? Up and at 'em. So, here we go. Hey, Boys. All right, as exciting as plants are, you know I love them. So I would like to give this plant right here a round of applause because he did really, really well today. So give him a round of applause. He gets the extra credit for today. All right. With that, what I'm going to do is go ahead and post some of the canvas work that you'll have regarding this.
This has on a forest. Biology of forest.
I'm thinking about showing your project videos,
No, please, no.
I would turn my.
but I think Friday's a better day for it, so let's aim for that. Okay?
Hey, present Benny. Present Benny.
Yes,
it is.
Show Benny's?
Present Benny's and Alex.
All
Do Benny and Alex.
All right.
Not mine. Just Benny.
Do Benny and Alex.
Please don't. My OCD has got to explode. Stop.
Let me do my best.
Wait, I want.
No, especially low.
Here.
She's like,
Oh, I'm presenting.
Benny, you're just getting presented.
Bro, mine was like, I was like,
No, it's slanted.
I was viewing it.
And just put Benny out, Benny out.
That's his first.
wait, is Troy
I
presenting
gotta
too?
honor this.
Troy and Pierre.
No, you're doing it too. Your name is on it.
Yeah, Troy got the win one day.
Also, I want my
Stole the ball at the end.
Wait, give that to my marker. I need that for my next class.
This is
Yeah,
what-
I could bring it for biology and geometry.
I do. That's it, right? Anyways? Oh, that's so sick. Where'd you get that? Five Below.
I have to do it.
I love Five Below. You're in line right now. Somebody asked me first. It was Mo. Mo asked first, right?
Wait, that's Mike Miles?
Like, you see him just look at those right there, like, that look like freaking cheese.
I saw it.
Really saw it.
Mr. Child, it was her friend.
Can you let me go?
Huh?
It was her friend.
I'm gonna pee. He's not giving you a scholarship.
Hey, can you wait?
L. Rejected.
We're trying to go out to see him. We're trying to go out to see him.
Alright, hey, sit down. Sit down. Benny, sit down.
Trying to go out to see him.
No, I actually have to.
Who else want to present today?
Wait, who presented today?
No, I'll do Friday.
Well, why don't you do, do Benny's today?
Hmm?
You just need more.
Show Benny. Show Benny.
Okay.
Just show Benny.
We'll show Benny's.
If you don't, can we not show it and then you can take off?
No. I would never do that to you.
No, but like, what if I ask for that? What if I don't want mine?
Mine's like 3 minutes.
She's not gonna show it to you.
I know.
Unfortunately, and it's not personal, I care more about your grade than how you feel.
Hey, Mr. Child,
It's get over with.
Oh, wait.
Yeah,
Alright,
I thought
hey.
my legs were gonna stick.
Alright. Voice level 1. Whisper, okay? Fix it later. After it's all up there, 'cause I'm afraid you're gonna forget.
I did mine.
I'll take a picture next time. No, but that's not when I post it.
That's actually fire.
Last pose?
Mr. Child.
I posted it.
And puzzle, I haven't posted that puzzle yet. Okay? What I said was canvas work, okay?
Oh.
Oh,
Yeah, Mr. Chair, we're
Mr.
not
What I
gonna
can
be
do
here
here
Friday, so we do have to present what about it.
Yeah, we got
There's
regional.
wrestling again.
I'll wait till you
Wait,
guys
it
get
is
back.
today, it is Friday.
I'll wait till you guys get back.
Can you just go without?
Please.
Let me look at the calendar.
Yeah, we got time to.
Oh, but mine is so bad.
Mine is golden.
No, yours is actually
Mine is better.
You're like my friend Alex.
Well, right?
Hey guys. Fabiola.
I did it myself. It's got glitters, right?
Oh, wow. It will be excited. No,
Yeah, Friday. We're gonna have to do Friday.
Oh, wow.
Next Friday? Because I need to still do photosynthesis and cellular respiration. I might even do it on the 16th. Are we off on the 16th?
I hope so.
I'm gonna aim for the 16th or the 9th. Okay?
Yeah, we're not even here on the night.
Yeah, so I might aim for the 16th. Okay? We'll do like a Friday thing.
Show Benny should not have ideas. That's all Emmanuel was doing.
You did that?
I have my own business. I do like.
Oh, that's so. Put it on Etsy. Put it on Etsy.
Huh?
Etsy.
I was setting up my baby part-time job that I booked when I started Sunday.
Exactly.
If you're interested in Etsy though, that's the way to.
No,
But then Nike too.
yeah, I really get Etsy for my business because I'm doing it on Instagram.
There's no.
All right. Did you actually see this? Oh, you're doing it?
One of them was in front.
Hey. Strike one.
I highly doubt it actually wasn't all that.
Oh, wow.
I'm more luckier than I think. Not every location is Spanish, bro. Like, thank you. Like, I did when I was little, but then like once parents left, like it's like you don't catch up.
You guys start making your way over to Canvas. It's not posted yet.
What?
This will be due today.
What?
Why is there?
Please be me. Please be me. Please be me. Please, please, please.
Nyla?
Oh, she's in the restroom. I'll tell her when he probably just be like, "Child, I don't even care about food." So tired of people. Research sounds like I was doing earlier.
Hey Nyla?
Let me go.
Are you going home? Okay. Have your notes.
Oh, yeah.
She's actually I was wearing a season.
Alright guys, what I need you to do, alright, just so we can be better on time, I will cover photosynthesis and cellular respiration, but what I need you guys to do is do the PD by yourselves.
Yes, yes, sir. Every single time.
Okay, cellular respiration and photosynthesis are very, very complicated processes. So I need you guys to get some preliminary knowledge on the PD first, and then we'll talk about it together.
Like today?
Friday. so I can get caught up.
It didn't work.
Now you can switch it on as well. And here. Yeah. What did she say? Where did she come in?
Why she wearing nothing?
Yo.
Well,
Oh, she like tuna. She's wearing nothing.
you know, you can get like.
I swear to
I use that outside.
All right, get logged in here so you have your student pays copy.
He said no. She said there's a meeting.
SZM, ZVM. Guys, get your student pays copy. Christian. And just answer the questions on there, so on Friday, things will move a little bit quicker. And we'll do whiteboard questions on Friday.
Sounds like a great time for you too.
For my winners, I'm gonna obviously have to start getting candy.
No, I like it.
We'll both.
Oh, no, by the way, my extra is gonna go to that board meeting. Have you graded that yet?
Which extracurricular are you talking about? Oh, that's a weekly part of your PD participation.
That was my big.
You look-
But I didn't have to.
Yeah, but I do over 100. And then that carries over into the other grades.
Or you should just take the 20 and put it into my test. Make it 10.
That's the actual notes. That's cash.
Ooh, cash, I'll take cash.
Cash is king.
Go to the green box. Susan. Hey,
Who was it?
I think he's after home.
Wah-wah.
No.
Yes. I have 4 different homes.
There's 3 people.
Yeah.
One of them was up?
Yeah, one of them.
100% old.
I
I
think
really
there was
doubt
2.
you'll move in the hallway.
What?
I really doubt you'll move in the hallways. You might be, if he even comes to our school, he'll probably just keep or that system.
What would they talk about? He's here to view the kids. How the teachers are teaching and see if
Yeah,
they're.
That's the job of those
He's
3
just, he's
people.
just here to see all the doors are open, see if y'all.
Lights are on, kids not sleeping on the
That's the
ground.
job of the people that
The
are.
one where the
Yo.
she's like so bad.
Other than plural.
Ladies.
I literally hate that.
What is it? No H?
No, plural pass.
Colo.
Rolo.
Crollo.
Yo, we should